It is September the 10th. It is Thursday, and I am your host, Casey Phoenix, and this is my daily thought. And for those who want to listen to the podcast, the main podcasting platform is KIRWKC.com. As some people may already know that have been listening, my daily thought is a supplement to the Keeping It Real with KC show, which is a weekend show. But I do my daily thought during the week. This daily thought won't be that long. It's been somewhat of a long day. I've had a lot of stuff on my plate, and I actually mentioned that on my other channel too. When I recorded this morning, I was doing a lot of things, and I had to do a lot of online errands as well as outside stuff too. And now I need to rest, at least so I've been told by some people. As for my daily thought, I mentioned before that it's okay to want more. And in that episode, I said there are people out there who are content with what they have, and don't judge them if they find contentment in the things that they have. Now, for those people who are content, I will also say what the title of this episode is: there's more to life. Sometimes being content and being complacent can intersect. Not always, but sometimes. And you should always appreciate what you have, regardless of how big or how small it is, because throughout life there will always be someone who has more, and there will always be someone who has less. And it may be in different parts. Someone may always have more money, someone may always have less money, someone may always be more healthy, someone may always be less healthy, someone may always be more intelligent, another person may always be less intelligent. This can be in all areas of life. And that's the thing about, as I said before, everyone being an individual. As individuals, though, it doesn't hurt to be a little bit curious from time to time. And I'll tell you a story. And usually I tell stories about myself, because I know a lot of people who may watch these episodes or listen to these episodes like, oh, Casey talks about himself a lot. Well, one reason I talk about myself a lot is because I try to make the story relatable by talking about something that I lived through. If I've experienced it, I have some insight on it. So that's usually why I use my specific stories. Also using other people's stories. That can open a Pandora's box sometime that cannot be closed. So I try my best to stay away from other people's stories and stick to my own when making a point. Unless absolutely necessary, I'll stray outside of that. But one thing I used to do when I was younger, I would drive my parents crazy, because before I was battling agoraphobia, which I believe I mentioned this in one of my episodes before, I had been battling agoraphobia since, wow, how long ago was that? When did that start? That was 2009-ish, I think. I was battling agoraphobia. And for those who don't know, agoraphobia is having panic attacks due to fear of going outside. And it started when I was working at an old job when I lived on the East Coast. And it got so bad that I had trouble going to the grocery store, like even going to the grocery store up the street from where I lived. Even that was a struggle for me. Over the years, I've learned how to manage it. I'm not taking any medications for it or anything like that. And one reason I haven't taken any medications for agoraphobia or any other type of stuff that I've dealt with in life is because when I was younger, I was on medication all the time because I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So I was on imipramine, dizipramine, Ritalin, and I think something else that I was taking, and I was taking medication from 5 until 17 years old for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So because of that, I'm very, unless I absolutely have to take medication, I usually avoid it. I'm like, okay, like with headaches, knock on wood over here, I haven't used any headache medicine, like over the counter medicine, in probably almost a decade and a half, I guess. Whatever it is, I usually try to thug it on out and keep it moving. So I'm very funny about medications. But before the agoraphobia happened and I lived home with my parents when I was younger, I would drive all over the place and it would drive my parents nuts because every time I would leave, I come back and then I say, oh, well, I was in St. Louis. Oh, well, I was in New York. Oh, well, I was in, I forgot the name of that city when I went to go see someone in Virginia. It wasn't Richmond. It was another part of Virginia. It was a city in Virginia that's not as, I guess you could say, as popular or that comes to mind when people think of Virginia. It doesn't have as much name recognition, and I forgot the name of it. It's like on the other side of Virginia, I think. I went there to see someone. I drove to Miami as well, and liked Miami so much that I ended up moving there later, which was another story within itself, because I moved to Miami later down the line, just a little side story, because my car broke down. And I didn't feel like calling my parents to ask them for the money to get the car fixed. So I was just like, you know what? Instead of calling them to get the money to get the car fixed, I'll just move here. And I called my parents and my mother picked up the phone and I was like, hey, Mom. So, hey, I moved to Miami. She's like, she paused for a few seconds. Talk to your dad. And then that's when I told my parents I moved to Miami. So that's how I ended up staying in Miami for a little bit over a year. Which my time in Miami I loved. But one thing about going to these places, I would always discover new things, even though I wasn't necessarily looking for it. There was some curiosity because if I went to a city, I was usually going to see someone. There wasn't necessarily a curiosity to see the city per se. And when I would go to these cities and interact or see the sights, like with Pittsburgh, when I went to Pittsburgh to see someone in Pennsylvania, which I had never been to Pittsburgh before, which was another reason why I decided to go. I was just like, okay, I'll go up there, see this person, and check it out. I had never seen the type of architecture in person that I had seen in Pittsburgh before. And it was a pleasant surprise. I was like, wow, this is a cute little city. I like this city. It's cute. And I enjoyed it. It was nice discovering it. And I did that. With New York, I went to New York for a weekend. I drove up. It was like a 13-hour drive. Maybe it should have been maybe 16, but I have a heavy foot on the gas. So I think I know I know I shaved off at least 2 hours going up and coming back. So, yeah. But I went to New York, which I went to Jersey. I went to Jersey because I was in, where did I go in Jersey? I think it was Union City. I think it was Union City. I went to see someone, hang out there, went to see someone else in Queens, I want to say, in New York. And I did that. Well, I stayed for like maybe a day and some change. I went to the deli, this deli. I'm talking about delis again. And I had never had New York cheesecake before, but I didn't want to eat it in New York. I wanted to bring it back with me. So when I was in the deli, I saw a plain New York cheesecake. And it was so funny because the guy who was assisting me, I had said to him, I'm like, well, how much for the cake? And he's like, he was telling me the slice. I'm like, no, the whole cake. And then his boss, the manager or the owner of the deli, the lady, she's like, the whole cake? She said, he wants the whole cake. He wants the whole cake. And she told me the price. I think it was like $34, $35. It wasn't that much. And I was like, okay, cool. So then I bought a huge bag of ice on my way. I set the cheesecake on the bag of ice, and then I was driving back down for like 12 hours, coming back down the East Coast. You know, and the cheesecake stayed cold too, as well. So it all worked out, even though my car had a lot of water in it afterwards. But the funny thing is that I wasn't looking for those type of experiences in New York. I also went to a restaurant. It was a pizza place. I believe it was Uno or something, if I'm not mistaken. And had pizza there. Did a few other things. Went across the Brooklyn Bridge, whatnot. It wasn't my first time in New York, though, because I had been to New York before when once upon a time I was pursuing a modeling career. So it wasn't my first time. I was familiar with some parts of New York. But the experience of what I discovered during that trip of visiting the person in New Jersey and then visiting someone in Queens and going to the deli and doing this and doing that, it was just an experience to add to my life. On top of the experience of the drive, going up and down the East Coast. And in addition to that, driving cross country from East Coast to West Coast, from West Coast to East Coast, East Coast to West Coast. And one thing I learned is people would always say Texas is so big. I remember when I drove cross country for the first time and they're like, Texas is big. I didn't realize it until I drove across Texas. Texas, it feels like you are in Texas forever. And usually I would clear about 1,200 miles in about a 14 hour period, give or take. I clear about 1,200 miles, which I could I could drive from east to west or vice versa in 2 days. People usually do 5 days and take breaks and stuff. I don't like taking breaks. I'm like, let's hit it. So, yeah, but throughout that drive, I would see things that I didn't know about. Just like in certain parts of Georgia, I didn't know there were cotton fields in certain parts of Georgia where cotton was grown. For some reason, at that time, and this was a long time ago, for some reason, I thought cotton was grown in other countries and shipped here. And then we would do whatever we need to do manufacturing wise. Or the United States just wouldn't deal with it and it would be handled and manufactured and everything else in another country and just shipped here. I didn't know there were tons of cotton fields that still existed at the time. Whether they're still there or not, it's been a minute since I've been through there, not sure. But more than likely, they are. I discovered all these things when I went on my first cruise. And I'll never forget, I had my appetizer, I had my entree, and I said to my cousin, I am still hungry. She said, well, order something else. I'm like, what do you mean order something else? I already had the appetizer and the entree, and I have my drink, and all I can get is the dessert. She's like, no, you can order every single thing on this menu if you want to. My eyes lit up. I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, you paid for it because it was my first cruise. I didn't know. And that was a fun discovery, going on a cruise, finding out that you can eat as much as you want. And you would be surprised on these cruise ships how much food, because later on I would go to own a travel agency and work for a cruise line too. When I lived in Miami, I worked for Royal Caribbean. So yeah, but you'd be surprised how much food they put on those ships because they overstock just in case something happens where they have more than they need to feed all of the guests that come on the ships. And that's amazing. But that discovery about being able to eat as much as I want, that was wild to me. And I discovered it because I was willing to go on the cruise in the first place. It wasn't a thing of, oh, well, I'm happy if I don't ever go on a cruise. I'm fine being on land. Same thing when I went to Europe and I was in London. I could have been like, oh, well, I'm not going to fly. I'm fine. But I didn't realize how beautiful. London is a very beautiful place. It actually, in different ways, but the same sentiment, I guess you could say. Architecturally, London is beautiful, just like in my eyes, architecturally, Pittsburgh was beautiful. Like I said, haven't been to Pittsburgh in forever. I have no idea what Pittsburgh looks like now. This was almost 20 years ago. But at that time, it was gorgeous. And the same thing with London. And then when I went to Amsterdam too, it was awesome. Another thing with my first cruise, when I was at St. Thomas, I didn't know water was clear. And by water being clear, obviously, if you pour the water out of the faucet, that's going to be clear. But I didn't know ocean water was clear. I always thought, because I had been to the beaches here on the East Coast, because I'd been to Myrtle Beach, and what other beach had I feel like I went to another beach too, Virginia Beach, which also I've been to Virginia Beach because I used to visit and date someone in Virginia Beach. My first Puerto Rican boyfriend. So yeah. But after going to the beaches, the water's not clear here. But in St. Thomas, when I went for the first time, I'm like, wait a second, I can see to the bottom of the ocean. And I had said that, and someone's like, yeah, the water's clear. And I just wasn't used to that. But it was nice to discover it. It was nice to see it. So I'm telling you all these stories and all these moments in my life. And I could go down a laundry list of other experiences, whether things that happened in Miami or things that have happened here in Los Angeles. Me being on the set with Sigourney Weaver. She is gorgeous in person. I could tell you story on top of story on top of story on top of story. But this is not my life's resume. This is an episode to tell you there's more to life. But you won't know that unless you're curious from time to time. I'm not saying go out and literally run with the bulls. I don't deal in that craziness. Now, I don't judge you. I'll call you crazy. It's not a judgment, just an observation. It's not my thing. I'm not running with the bulls and all that other stuff. However, it doesn't hurt to be curious, maybe to go watch the Running with the Bulls. Now I do that. I watch the Running with the Bulls and record for you guys. But I'm letting you know that it's okay to be curious sometimes. And this is, like I said, this is for the people who are content with what they have, who are content. I'm saying it's okay not necessarily to want more, because that episode's done. If you need to know how I feel about wanting more, then go ahead and watch that episode. I'm saying it's okay to be curious because there's more to life. And you will be surprised sometimes the things you will discover throughout your curiosity and your experiences when you just explore just a little bit. Because when I'm talking about it's okay to want more, on that episode, that was more about ambition, is what that episode was about. That was, and that's the best way to articulate this. When I was talking about it's okay to want more in that episode, that's zeroing in on ambition. When I'm talking about there's more to life, I'm zeroing in on curiosity. And it's okay to be a little bit curious from time to time instead of being fine with the, what's the word I'm looking for? With, universe, help me articulate this. With being fine with the day-to-day grind. Thank you, universe, I appreciate that. With being fine with the day-to-day grind, where you wake up, you do this, you do that, you do that, you do that. You sit down, you watch a certain movie or you watch a certain TV show. You call a few friends. You might drink, you might smoke, you might do whatever, and then sleep. And then it's the same thing over again, like Groundhog's Day, over and over and over and over. And you're content with that. You're fine with that. Having that is fine for you. And I'm not judging you. And no one should judge you if that's fine and if that works for you. I'm just telling you it doesn't hurt to be a little bit curious from time to time, because the curiosity might pull you out of the day-to-day grind. So that's what I'm saying. There's more to life. And you'll be surprised. And that's all I got for my daily thought. And thank you to those who have been listening and watching and subscribing and liking and sharing and all of that other stuff. I really appreciate it. As you already know, I've said it a gazillion times. KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. KIRWKC on Instagram. KIRWKC on Twitter. And Facebook.com/KIRWKC. If you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to click the subscribe button followed by the notification bell. If you're watching on Daily Motion, feel free to click the subscribe button there. You will know when I upload new videos. Again, your support really means a lot to me. And I hope to keep bringing you more content, more stuff. I hope you're enjoying the stories and my daily thought. And also, before I go, something just hit me. For this weekend, I was planning on doing sports, but I kind of feel like since it's a new month, I might do a wacky news weekend. I don't know, but I feel like I need to do a sports weekend. So that's what I might do for Keeping It Real with KC. So we'll see. I'm leaning towards Wacky News Weekend because I did movie recommendations last weekend. So we'll see, but I'm just letting you guys know. But again, thank you for the support. Until next time, be blessed.